It's heartbreaking to realize that two grown adults, sober and fully aware, never had the chance to sit down and face it all. Ally MacGraw and Steve McQueen were the embodiment of Hollywood glamour, their romance captivating fans around the world. Their whirlwind love affair and sudden marriage seemed like a fairy tale brought to life. Yet now, at 85, MacGraw reveals a far harsher reality behind the glitz. In a candid new interview, the actress opens up about McQueen's darker side, the emotional turbulence she endured, and the sacrifices she made, truths that were hidden behind the dazzling image of the world's most glamorous couple. In the early 1970s, Ally MacGraw stood at the pinnacle of Hollywood stardom, celebrated for her luminous performances in films like Love Story and Goodbye, Columbus. Her marriage to Robert Evans, a powerful figure in the film industry, seemed to cement her position in this glittering universe, blending personal and professional stability in a way few could imagine. That desire would manifest in the most unexpected way when Steve McQueen, the brooding and magnetic actor, walked into her world with the script for The Getaway in 1972. From the very first encounter, Ally sensed a force she could not resist, a compelling energy that threatened to disrupt the carefully ordered life she had built. It was not scandal that drew her in, nor a calculated ambition, but an intensity and authenticity that her polished Hollywood existence lacked. The connection between them was immediate and undeniable, sparking a passionate affair that would shake the foundations of her marriage to Evans. Ally later reflected that her decision to follow McQueen was not born of reason, but of raw emotion, a surrender to desire and the allure of being truly seen in a way that Hollywood had never allowed. McQueen embodied danger and freedom, qualities missing from her life despite all its outward success. Their romance quickly evolved from on-screen chemistry to an all-consuming reality that reshaped Ally's choices, ultimately leading her to leave her husband and step into a life defined by McQueen's presence. By 1973, they were married, presenting to the world an image of an extraordinary couple: McQueen, the rebellious action hero, and Ally, the introspective, radiant woman. Yet behind the cameras and headlines, the relationship was already sowing seeds of sacrifice and upheaval. Ally's life had pivoted on a moment of irresistible attraction, one that would forever blur the lines between passion and loss, love and identity, setting her on a path where personal happiness and professional ambition would clash in ways she could never have anticipated. At first, life with Steve McQueen in Malibu seemed like a dream realized. Ally MacGraw described their home as a cozy beachfront retreat, a sanctuary away from the relentless scrutiny of Hollywood. The two of them escaped the chaos of fame, surrounding themselves with close friends who valued simplicity over celebrity, spending mornings barefoot on the sand, evenings around barbecues, and nights stargazing with beer in hand. But beneath the calm surface, the dynamic of control began to take shape. McQueen, who had long rejected the trappings of Hollywood, demanded privacy that came hand in hand with emotional submission. He didn't merely want solitude, he wanted absolute influence over the rhythm of their life, over the woman who had left her own world to be with him. Ally, in her effort to sustain the relationship, adapted fully. She became the caretaker of the household, a role she described later as playing the cook, the cleaning lady, the simple woman to the hilt. Her career, once vibrant and ascending, faded into the background, replaced by domestic routines designed to keep McQueen content. McQueen's possessiveness and unpredictable moods collided with their mutual reliance on alcohol, transforming quiet evenings into battles of words and silent withdrawals. Ally began drinking heavily herself, a coping mechanism that dulled her anxiety but deepened the strain on their connection. The idyllic beach life was eroding, exposing the emotional cost of her surrender. The glamour, the scripts, the attention she had once commanded vanished, leaving behind a woman trapped by love, desire, and a need to maintain peace. What began as sanctuary turned into a crucible where passion and control intertwined, setting the stage for the profound sacrifices she would soon recognize as irreversible. Behind the effortless charisma and iconic cool of Steve McQueen lay a deeply troubled man shaped by a turbulent childhood. His father had abandoned him as a baby, and his mother, reportedly unstable and struggling with alcoholism, sent him to live with relatives before placing him in reform schools for troubled boys. These formative experiences left lasting scars, a pervasive fear of abandonment, mistrust in intimate relationships, and an insatiable need to control the environment around him. To the world, McQueen appeared as a confident, independent rebel, but to Ally MacGraw, the truth was far more complicated. Ally quickly realized that the traits which had drawn her to him, the magnetism, intensity, and emotional authenticity, were inseparable from a volatility that kept her constantly on edge. McQueen's moods could shift without warning, alternating between charm and withdrawal, affection and suspicion. He demanded absolute adherence to his expectations, requiring Ally to sign a prenuptial agreement and gradually persuading her to abandon her acting career entirely. Ally later admitted that she made herself smaller to accommodate his insecurities, sacrificing both her professional ambitions and her personal voice. Moments of intimacy were often underscored by subtle calculations, as she learned to speak and act in ways that would avoid triggering his jealousy or mistrust. The man who seemed larger than life in the press could, behind closed doors, be controlling, possessive, and unpredictable. McQueen's unresolved childhood wounds dictated the terms of their love, and Ally's own desires and ambitions were gradually subsumed by his needs. What started as intoxicating passion slowly became an exhausting emotional exercise, revealing the price of intimacy with a man both compelling and profoundly wounded. McQueen, protective of his own celebrity and driven by deep-seated fears of vulnerability, made it clear that he did not wish to share the spotlight. Ally's career was no longer her own to pursue. The roles, accolades, and opportunities she had been building were sacrificed in favor of domestic life. The transition was swift and complete. Ally embraced the role of wife and mother, raising her son Josh, born from her previous marriage to Robert Evans, and adhering to McQueen's expectations without question. She described herself as having created a version of the woman McQueen desired, the caretaker, the supportive partner, the unobtrusive presence who would keep the peace and never challenge his authority. By the late 1970s, the consequences of her sacrifice had become undeniable. Her career stalled entirely, leaving her talents unexpressed and her public acclaim fading into memory. Ally began to lose faith in herself, no longer recognizing the confident, radiant woman who had captivated audiences. The emotional weight of suppressing her desires and ambitions for the sake of the marriage accumulated, leaving her feeling increasingly diminished and unseen. Her love for McQueen, intense and consuming as it had been, became intertwined with the pain of lost opportunity and self-erasure. Ultimately, the marriage could not withstand the imbalance between them. By 1977, the relationship ended, leaving Ally with the heavy toll of both grief and self-reflection. She was confronted not only with the failure of a love that had once seemed all-consuming, but also with the personal cost of surrendering her career and autonomy. Her story illustrates how the allure of passion, when combined with the shadow of control and fear, can demand sacrifices that resonate far beyond the confines of romance, shaping a life in ways that are difficult to reverse. After her turbulent marriage to Steve McQueen, Ally MacGraw gradually vanished from the public eye, not as the result of a single dramatic event, but through a slow erosion of self. The woman who had once commanded attention on magazine covers and captivated audiences with her performances in Love Story and Goodbye, Columbus was now living in a quiet, controlled existence at McQueen's Malibu home. Ally admitted that she never truly showed McQueen who she was. Instead, she presented a carefully constructed version of herself, a facade designed to maintain peace and avoid conflict. This suppression extended to every part of her life. McQueen's possessiveness and jealousy dictated her interactions, particularly with men, and his control over her social engagement left her world shrinking to the confines of the home. Allie's independence, her professional aspirations, and even her personal expression were sacrificed to accommodate the emotional demands of a partner whose own insecurities were formidable. By the late 1970s, the cost of this self-imposed erasure had become painfully clear. Allie's career had stalled completely, and she had lost confidence in her abilities. The marriage eventually ended in 1977, marking the conclusion of a relationship that had reshaped her life in profound and often painful ways. Yet even after the separation, the emotional consequences lingered. It would take years for Allie to begin reclaiming herself. Only after McQueen's death in 1980, and through intensive therapy and self-reflection, did she start to confront the patterns that had led to such complete personal compromise. By 2024, she reflected on her journey with honesty and clarity, stating, "I'm finally beginning to feel comfortable in my own skin." This marked a pivotal point in her life, a moment where she could step away from the shadows of her past and re-embrace the authentic self that had long been suppressed. What began as a passionate and consuming romance between Allie MacGraw and Steve McQueen gradually transformed into a relationship marked by volatility, control, and unhealed emotional wounds. The initial thrill of their love gave way to tension, exacerbated by McQueen's insecurities, possessiveness, and the couple's mutual reliance on alcohol. Even the tranquil Malibu home became a battleground, as evenings once spent in leisure devolved into arguments, power struggles, and emotional withdrawals. Allie later admitted that both of them were drinking excessively, dulling communication while amplifying tempers. McQueen's jealousy, rooted in his early experiences of abandonment and instability, became increasingly suffocating. Simple gestures or innocent interactions with other men could trigger his suspicion, while he himself maintained the freedom to flirt and indulge outside the marriage. Allie's own infidelities, though quieter, were not acts of rebellion but indications of the emotional distance that had grown between them. Over time, the love that had once united them became destructive, draining Allie of her confidence, creativity, and sense of self. By 1977, the strain had reached its breaking point, and the couple separated, ending a relationship that had burned intensely but unsustainably. McQueen's death in 1980 from a rare cancer at the age of 50 added another layer of grief and unresolved emotion for Allie. The abrupt loss of a man who had been central to her identity and personal history forced her to confront the depth of what she had sacrificed. She was left grappling not only with heartbreak, but with the long-term effects of suppressing her independence, abandoning her career, and compromising her identity for love. The aftermath of loving McQueen was profound. Allie struggled with depression and alcoholism in the years following, seeking treatment at the Betty Ford Center in 1985 to address both addiction and the emotional scars of love addiction. Through therapy, she began recognizing patterns that had dominated her life for decades, particularly the influence of her childhood experiences with a volatile alcoholic father. The realization of how deeply she had sought approval and affection at the expense of her own well-being marked the beginning of a long journey toward healing and self-reclamation. After decades marked by fame, love, sacrifice, and loss, Allie MacGraw gradually embarked on a journey to reclaim herself. The process was neither quick nor easy. Therapy allowed her to trace these patterns, recognize the costs of her self-abandonment, and begin to rebuild a life anchored in authenticity. In the 1990s, Allie moved away from Hollywood, finding refuge in Tasuk, New Mexico. The location offered not only privacy and natural beauty, but also the emotional space to rediscover herself outside of the spotlight. Surrounded by a supportive community, she cultivated new routines and passions. Painting, gardening, animal welfare, and spiritual practices became central to her life, providing avenues for expression, reflection, and fulfillment that were entirely her own. Over time, Allie learned to value presence over performance, finding satisfaction in activities that resonated with her true self rather than seeking validation from the outside world. She came to recognize that while Steve McQueen had fit into an unresolved emotional framework of hers, his influence no longer defined who she was. In interviews, she reflected on this transformation with clarity, stating, "I am finally beginning to feel comfortable in my own skin," acknowledging that she had outgrown the need to mold herself to someone else's expectations. McQueen remains a part of her history, but he no longer dictates her present. Today, Allie MacGraw's life is characterized by intentionality, peace, and a renewed sense of self. She embodies resilience, having navigated fame, passion, loss, and addiction to arrive at a place where authenticity and contentment are paramount. Her story illustrates not only the complexities and costs of love, but also the power of self-awareness, recovery, and personal reinvention. Through patience, reflection, and courage, Allie has reclaimed the voice, identity, and autonomy that were once compromised, offering a poignant testament to the enduring strength of human resilience. After leaving Hollywood behind, Allie MacGraw embraced a life far removed from the glare of fame, choosing solace and simplicity in Tusauk, New Mexico. Surrounded by nature and a close-knit community, she began reconstructing her life on her own terms. Painting, gardening, animal care, and spiritual practices became daily anchors, offering both creative outlets and moments of introspection. For the first time in decades, Allie was free to explore her passions without seeking approval or fitting into someone else's mold. The long process of healing included confronting past patterns of people-pleasing and self-abandonment that had defined her relationships, especially with Steve McQueen. Therapy and self-reflection helped her untangle emotional dependencies and recognize the deep impact of childhood experiences, particularly growing up with a volatile father whose alcoholism had left lasting scars. Over time, Allie reclaimed her voice, her independence, and her identity. She reflects on this period as a profound transformation, from a woman who once disappeared into someone else's shadow to a woman fully present in her own life. In interviews, she emphasized that while McQueen remains a significant part of her history, he no longer defines her. Her days are now filled with intentionality and authenticity, and she has cultivated peace, joy, and a renewed sense of self-worth. This chapter of Allie's life demonstrates that even after profound loss and sacrifice, it is possible to rediscover oneself and live with dignity, self-respect, and freedom. Allie MacGraw's story is both tragic and inspiring, a powerful reminder of the costs of love and the rewards of reclaiming oneself. What part of her journey resonated with you the most? Have you ever had to choose between love and personal freedom? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the next video to uncover more hidden stories from Hollywood's past.